Hello, my name is Steve Waldron, and I'm the GIS coordinator and instructor here at the City of Richmond. This video is a continuation of the city's introduction to ArcGIS Online. You should have already taken the Part 1 course, which introduced you to ArcGIS Online and gave you your initial familiarity of how to use ArcGIS Online. In this Part 2 of the ongoing introduction, we will not focus on how to use the system, but rather we will discuss the standards and rules of the road for using ArcGIS Online that the city wants our GIS users to follow. An important note, you will be instructed to contact our GIS office via email to notify us that you have attended this orientation at the end of the video. So let's begin. ArcGIS Online is used by many city agencies to provide GIS services. You may be creating GIS layers. You may be doing maps, applications. If you are someone who will be using ArcGIS Online to create these GIS products for use by coworkers and customers, then you need to be prepared to follow certain standards and practices. People who create and manage data in ArcGIS Online also have responsibilities to ensure that all aspects of our web GIS are working well. So essentially, the DIT GIS team, which I lead, has advice and suggested standards that we'd like you to follow. Let's talk about those responsibilities. We've broken things up into two aspects, something we call standards and another we call rules. Standards are things we can do to help with consistency, familiarity, and so that we all have a common vocabulary and view of ArcGIS Online. Rules are things we can do to prevent problems. There will be 5 sections that we'll cover in this presentation. Number 1 is publishing. We have rules about this. 2, metadata. We have standards for metadata. Number 3, delete protection is something that you can use to prevent problems. And a change control process is a rule we like to see people follow. And lastly, we'll talk about workspace organization, how you can organize and use naming conventions for your folders and files. This would fall under the category of standards. Publishing. The number one rule I think we would say is do not publish data that doesn't belong to you. For example, you don't need to publish the council districts or the parcels or anything else that's an enterprise GIS layer. The reason is because someone else is already doing this. We taught you in the part 1 class how you can do searches for our GIS layers, or you could use the filter option by going to the categories to find these enterprise layers. And we want you to know that you can just trust that the layers everyone uses are already being republished and kept up to date for your use. So you don't need to publish them on your own. We've taught you how to locate those layers. There's 2 types of information that get published, we can say. The first is the enterprise layers. So those would be like the things we've mentioned before, council districts, parcels, school zones, police beats, the things that you would expect to find in the city's enterprise GIS database. We're making it all available to you. So that is what we call production data. It's enterprise data. It's authoritative data. The second type of data is the kind of data that you will be working with. I'll call it special use or project data. So you're going to be working on special projects and you will create data or you will create applications or maps created from your work. This is yours. So of course you can create those items in ArcGIS Online, and then you can share them out for use with your coworkers or for the public to access. What this screenshot is showing you is the overview page for a particular GIS layer. Metadata is simply information about your information. So the spots you see circled in red indicate where you should be providing metadata. Recall when we created a web map in the Part 1 class, the first thing that happened when you hit the Save button is you had to provide a name for the map. You had to provide tags, tag words that help people find the map. You had to provide a summary. This location up here is the summary. Here is where you can type a longer description. This would be populated from the overview page, not from the save option when you're saving an item. And down at the bottom, you could always come back and revisit your tags. You can see that there are edit buttons next to each of these sections that permit you to go in and add content, add metadata. Here, we've jumped into ArcGIS Online, and I'm going to show you an example. I'm logged in as the City of Richmond account. This is a special account we use to manage enterprise solutions. And we can see I'm in a folder. It's called Layer Election Districts. And in this folder, we have a number of feature layers. Let's take a look at voter precincts. If I click on this, it will take me to the overview page. All items in ArcGIS Online have an overview page. So here we can see, this is the summary, current voter precincts in the City of Richmond. And here's a longer description that describes what a voter precinct is. It also contains some useful information about who owns this GIS layer. If we scroll down, we can see that we have a spot for categories. So this data has been categorized. It has tag words. So if we use these tag words from the Add Data button, this will help locate this GIS layer for use. Remember in the Part 1 class when we did a search for Henrico? Well, if I'm sitting in an office in Henrico County and I do a search on Richmond, this layer should show up as an available layer for me to use. Let's talk about thumbnails. Thumbnails are basically little images that we can apply to the metadata on the overview page. And thumbnails help show that a layer, a map you created, an app you created, whatever it is, it makes it look like it's curated, authoritative, and official. It's of high quality. So what we've done is, what you will see is that we use a thumbnail model like this slide here, and we apply it on all of our GIS layers, and we will also use it on our applications that we create. And we want you to know this thumbnail is available for you to use too. You can find it as a PowerPoint file in ArcGIS Online that you can download. So in a moment, I will show you how you can locate this thumbnail and download it. So all you have to do is use the tag word thumbnail, or you could use template and or PowerPoint. You could use one or all three of these. So let's take a look at how that works. Here I've toggled back out into ArcGIS Online, and I'm going to go up here, and there is a search option on the very top row. So I'm going to type the word thumbnail, and look, it says right here, Richmond ArcGIS Online thumbnail template. It's a Microsoft PowerPoint. Okay, I'm going to click on this. It takes me to that template, that thumbnail template, the overview page. And notice it has a summary of what this item is. It even has a description of how to use it. These are the steps for how to use it. So I'll show you how you can use it. You would just click the download You can see it has downloaded the file. So let's go ahead and just open this file. And what's happened here is the PowerPoint has opened. And if I wish, I could go to File and do a Save As and save it as an image once I have typed in and added content on the PowerPoint slide itself. So if we go back to ArcGIS Online and we go back to voter precincts, I want to show you from the overview page, you can edit your thumbnail. You click right here and then you just drag and drop your image and it will be applied as the thumbnail on whatever the item is. In this case, it was a GIS hosted layer. A little bit more about metadata. Tags are actually important. They help users find layers. We'd like to see you use a tag that identifies the owning agency. So in other words, what department is responsible for this layer? What department do you work in? And you can use the familiar abbreviations for departments. That's what we have done. So if you work in planning department, you can put PDR. If you work in public works, you can use DPW as an example. So try to put the department tag, the department as a tag. And also in your experience in using ArcGIS Online, you're going to be doing um, tests, experiments. You're going to be trying things out. So if you happen to create something, you create a map, let's say, and it's just a test, you should use the word test, not only as a tag word, but you should use it in the title of your web map. That way, anyone who might discover it will see the word test and know, oh, this is just something that the person is using as a test. It's not a production thing. I shouldn't share it. I shouldn't use it for any real work because it's got that word test in it. If something is a production level item that it could be used to make decisions, it could be shared, then use the tag word production. And if it's a special project, we suggest that maybe you could use the word project as a keyword. So I'm going to jump out into ArcGIS Online and just refresh your memory about how useful tags are. So here we have a web map. And let's say I'm interested in finding anything associated with the Richmond public school system. So I'm going to go to add data. I'm going to search for layers. I'm interested in searching the whole organization. As we've taught you in part one, this is the best way to search for layers. And I'm going to use a keyword, a tag. I'm going to use RPS. And we can see, look at these. These have thumbnails on them. They look official. They've got the green check mark even. We can see we have the high school zones, the middle school zones, the elementary, and the schools layer. So the use of this tag word is useful to help locate GIS layers. Or if you have special projects or things that you organize in your department, use keyword or tags, which are keywords, to help make those layers discoverable by you and or our coworkers. Okay, I think we're done with metadata as soon as we cover groups. So groups have metadata. We haven't talked about groups yet, but in ArcGIS Online, you'll recall that you can control who can see your items. We talked about sharing, how you could share it with the organization versus you could share it with everyone so that the public could even see it outside the organization. But you can also create a group and then you can add people to your group and items to your group, and your group will control access to those items so that only people who are members of a group can see the item. So it could be a subset of people in the organization. We have a special video that you can watch in our library that talks about group-based security and creating groups in ArcGIS Online. But in the conversation of metadata, establishing groups is an important way to control who has access to your information. And we're going to end up with a lot of groups in our ArcGIS Online organization. And so it's very important that groups contain good metadata. That's how we know what the group is for. So you should provide a descriptive name that makes sense. Be descriptive about it. Don't be cryptic. And it would be great if you provide a detailed summary explaining what is this group, what's it used for, and also to use tag words that make sense. So what we'll do is we'll go take a look at a group to highlight these standards. So I'm going to jump back into ArcGIS Online. You can see I'm still logged in as the City of Richmond account. And across the top, you can see groups is highlighted. We can see my groups that I own or feature groups or any group in the whole organization if we chose to. I happen to know the group I want to demonstrate is the registrar group. So I typed in registrar, the groups got filtered, and we can see there's a group called voter registrar. It's got a nice thumbnail on it, right? It's got a picture of a hand putting a ballot in a box. So let's click on this. And what will happen is, like everything else, it will take us to the overview page for the group. Remember, everything has an overview page. Here's the metadata. So we can see that this group says content and users are added to this group to control access to special projects ordered by the registrar, such as mapping of the voter roll. And the description pretty much says the same thing. We can see some of the content in this group. If we click on content up here, we have things in here like the voter roll has been mapped and the registrar historically has not, they don't want to share that information with everybody, but they need to see it in ArcGIS Online in order for them to do planning and evaluating of the voter precincts. Sometimes they have to redraw the lines based on populations. So they like to map out and see the voter roll. We can see members. So there's really, there used to be another person in this group, but it's limited. So right now, anyway, only Lisa Cosby can see the items in this group. No one else can see it. Not anyone from any other departments or even people within the department because you have to be a member of the group. So looking at the overview page, it's important that groups have descriptions of what their purpose is. Okay, finally, we're going to move away from metadata and we're going to point out something that you should know. If you have something that's really important to you, if you go from the overview page over to settings, you can mark something as delete protected. What this means is you can't accidentally delete it. And believe me, from experience, because I try to keep my workspace neat and orderly, I've accidentally deleted something. And you should know that as of June 2021, we don't have a way right now to recover things that get deleted because the data lives in the cloud. DIT is not creating backups of this. We're not able to. It's not our environment. So if something's important, you don't want to accidentally delete it. As a rule, perhaps you should set delete protection. So we set delete protection on all of our GIS enterprise layers because we don't want them to get accidentally deleted by the owner. Here, I will show you. I'm back in ArcGIS Online. I'm in my workspace because it says content right here. And I'm in the folder called Layer Election Districts. So let's take a look at voter precincts. If I put a check mark here, some tools will pop up right here in this space above. So I'm going to put a check mark and I'm going to try to delete this layer. And look, the following item can't be deleted because they are delete protected. Okay. If I go to the overview page, and from the overview, I come over to the settings, we can see I've got delete protection set. So it can't be deleted. If I remove the protection, then I can delete it. Moving on, related to delete protection, sort of, is this idea of change control. So change control is something the IT department has on its mind all the time. Change control is a process used to ensure that changes to a product or a system, such as ArcGIS Online, are introduced in a controlled and coordinated manner. So what this means is I think it's best illustrated by the scenario on this slide. So the scenario is, I want you to imagine that you're using the GIS parcels in 25 of your web maps. That's a lot of maps. And if the parcels were deleted in ArcGIS Online by the owner of those, then all 25 of your web maps are going to be broken, right? Because the layer no longer exists. So you're going to get an error message on your web page, on your web map. So we want to avoid things like that. Well, let's say that you create a very important layer of information as a result of a project you're working on. And you and your department, your coworkers know about this GIS layer and they're like, wow, we're going to use that. And so people might be using your GIS layer that you create. And what we ask is if you decide at some point, oh, this is an old layer, I don't need it anymore, I'm going to delete it. We ask that you never delete a layer without first verifying that it's not being used by anyone else. But then the question arises, how am I supposed to do that? Well, we can help you. My department, the DIT GIS team, we have a special tool that we can use in order to find out if anyone is using a particular GIS layer. So we ask that you coordinate it with the people that are using it first. So let's take a look at this next slide. There's a report we can run behind the scenes. It's an administrative tool that only we have access to. It's called a dependencies report. So you tell us the name of your layer, we'll run the report, and we can give you a list of the people's names, their email, and their web maps that are using the layer in question. So then you can use that report to reach out to them before you decide to clean up by removing a particular layer. If no one's using it, then we give you the green light because the report will tell us no item dependencies were found. So change control in ArcGIS Online, we're talking about the removal of things. We don't want people to break other people's items. Moving right along, and this is a big one, workspace organization. What we're saying here, and these are standards we'd like to see people follow, is that you really do need to use the folders and naming conventions for your folders and your content to keep everything organized. So if you're going to be creating a library of GIS layers, you should create folders and prefix them with LYR underscore. So that would be layer to store any published layers. If you're going to be creating applications, we'd like you to use a folder that has the prefix app and store that content in your app folder. If you're working on a special project, you know what? It would be nice. It would be a good idea if you use the prefix for the folder called project. And anytime, I mentioned this previously, anytime you're creating something that's a test for you, go ahead and create a folder that has the suffix of the word test. And this will indicate that these are non-production versions of whatever content it is that they contain. We should also use the suffix test on the actual items. So we may have a folder that has the suffix test, and the items contained in the folder, such as your web maps or any layers or things you create, should also have the suffix test. So these are all visual cues that this is not real production level data. It's just a test version. So we thought it would be a great idea to show you how we've organized the workspace using these standards. So here we've jumped back out to ArcGIS Online, still logged in as the City of Richmond account, and we're in our workspace because we've got the content menu. It looks like we just have a few items here that are not in a folder. Um, but if I scroll here on the left, look at all these folders. There's a heck of a lot of them. So let's just take a brief tour. Remember using the prefix app. So wherever you see, we create a lot of applications here in DIT, and or we create things that support applications. So we have a folder for the Community Gardens app. So if I click on this folder, all this content in here, this is what makes the Community Gardens application work. Notice this folder. It has a prefix app, but it also has the suffix test. So what's going on here is we have a test version of the Community Gardens app. So for example, if we ever needed to go in and tweak or change the Community Gardens app, the first thing we'll do is come to the test version. We'll try out the tweak here to make sure we understand what we're doing. Then we'll go to the production app and repeat the same step. So we have lots of apps in here. You can see all these app folders. I think most people are familiar with the parcel mapper. Well, guess what? We have two versions. We have an internal and external version. Those applications are stored in this folder. Okay, lots of app folders. Let's keep scrolling until we get to, here's some layer folders. So this is where we keep layers organized. So the center lines, the street center lines are stored here. Here's the layer. We have a test version. Well, if we did, it would be in that folder. Um, Education. These are the four layers we found when we did a search on the keyword or the tag RPS. They're stored here in this folder. Election districts. This is all the stuff related to the voter registrar. Okay, so we're using folders, prefixes, naming conventions. It's very clear to us where our stuff is organized and where it's stored in our workspace. And believe me, the more you use it, the more important it will become because you'll have so much content. It really needs to be organized. Let's see here. Projects. Look, we have special projects we've done. So we have folders with the prefix project. So here's one for the DCAO for finance. So we did a project, looks like we did something with tax abatement or tax exemption type of study. Okay, so special project. We use the prefix project on the folder. Keep all the content there. And we even do things like we create story maps. So we've got folders where we created a prefix called story map as an example. So the point being here is please use the folders, please use the naming conventions and keep your stuff organized. And some of the suggestions we've given you, we've seen people adopting, and it's working well. Plus, we all have the same vocabulary when we're talking about our workspaces. Here's another reason why this is important. Um, we're not all going to work for the city of Richmond forever. And whenever someone leaves the city, well, guess what? We can't have their account active in ArcGIS Online anymore. So we have to disable and remove their account. Well, you can't remove an account in ArcGIS Online if their workspace contains content. So what we have to do is figure out where are we going to put the content. So someone's going to inherit it, probably someone in the same department. So we're going to move the content into someone else's workspace so that we can remove their account. So what would you want to inherit from somebody? An unorganized mess? Or would you like to have something that's using the same naming conventions and standards that you're using? And it will help explain what that content is and that they have metadata on their materials, etc. So the idea of neat, orderly content management can circle back to any one of us if a coworker happens to leave and we're going to move that content to someone else's workspace. Looks like we're getting towards the end here. Um, Other considerations. Everybody has a bio page in ArcGIS Online. So when you log in, you can always go and where the sign in button is, you can go to settings and there'll be an option there for bio. So it would be nice if you would indicate, put a picture of yourself or maybe something you identify with. Like I know in the assessor's office, Paris Simmons has used the logo of his favorite English football team. But a lot of people are using a photo of themselves, and it would be good if you put in your department you work for, what's your job title, that kind of stuff. Because if you don't, we don't know who the users are. I'm going to jump out and show you what I mean. So I'm going to toggle over here to ArcGIS Online, and I'm logged in as the master account here. So I'm just going to go to the organization and I'm going to view the members real quick. So here is a list of all these members. You can see a lot of people have put a photo or they've put a logo or something, but a lot of them haven't. You see this person here? They have no bio. It doesn't say anything about them. I don't know who they are. I don't know where they work. Okay. That's the kind of thing that would be useful to know from an administrator account. Who are you? I don't know who these people are unless they fill out their bio. The bio is completed over here. If you click on your name after you've signed in, you can always go to my profile, and that's where you would set up your bio. Okay, a quick look at the training curriculum. This is a slide you've seen once and you will see in the future. The way it's read is from left to right, top to bottom. For GIS user community, we always start people off with ArcGIS Online. So you've got an ArcGIS Online account. You've already taken the intro part 1. Now you've completed the part 2, talking about the standards and rules for using the system. The next option is, and it is optional, is we can assign you a learning plan that you can do courses online, self-paced on your own. These are ESRI classes to take a deeper dive into using ArcGIS Online. But also, because you've finished this learning pathway here, we have other electives that you can take. So we've got videos created to show you how to do address mapping and geocoding. We've got another class you can take for creating web apps and another one for creating GIS layers in ArcGIS Online. And if you're interested, if you want to make story maps or you want to learn how to do dashboards, we don't have a class for that, but guess what? ESRI does have classes for that, and we can help point you to those if you have difficulty finding them. Because you guys belong to the City of Richmond's ArcGIS Online organization, this unlocks the ability for you to take lots of online training. So this URL that you see right here, you should document. You have access to free self-paced online GIS training from ESRI. And when you log in to this catalog, you can do a search for like ArcGIS Online. You can do searches for lots of different things that you might be interested in. And what you'll notice is that the classes, many of them will have this padlock that appears to be unlocked. The class is unlocked, meaning it's unlocked to you. You can take this class because you have an ArcGIS Online membership. So this is where you would go to learn how to do story maps. You could do dashboards if you want to learn how to make dashboards. And they're all very professional. They're done by ESRI and made available to you and I. The final slide, let's talk about what's next. You saw in the training curriculum that as far as we're concerned, you've taken part one, you've taken part two. If you wish, you can you can take more electives, but we'd like for you now to be sure to send us an email. And here's our email address to inform us that you've taken this part two class. We keep track, we keep a log of all the students. And once we receive that email, we'll write you back and you'll get an invitation to take an online learning plan if you wish. It's just self-paced videos and online courses, hands-on courses that help you take a deeper dive into ArcGIS Online if you wish. And as I've mentioned, we have those other elective courses, so you can proceed back to the Richmond GIS training site to take those electives now that you've completed part one and two. And that will do it for your introduction to the city's ArcGIS Online environment.